everyone, and welcome to the Elevate series featuring Mark B. Murphy, somebody that I have admired, respected for years. Every time I can get this guy on the phone, I'm just intently listening to anything that he's going to drop next. Mark has one of the most interesting vantage points of anybody in my network. He is the proud owner of a firm, Northeast Private Sequoia in New Jersey, one of the top wealth management firms in the nation, consistently ranking in the top 10 of all wealth managers and financial advisors in the country by Forbes, over $1 billion in management. Mark knows everybody. He's one of the most well-connected, well-resourced people I know. So, Mark, I want to thank you for giving me a little bit of your time to pick your brain, help entrepreneurs figure out where is north in all of this crazy. So just thanks for your time. Appreciate you so much.
Let me start just with a cautionary message, and then let's talk about what we really want to talk about, Amber. If you're importing goods from China or from other countries, all the tariff things going on, or you're involved in Israel or the war in Ukraine or any of these other things that affect your business because you can't get goods shipped from China, that's unique to you. And I think we have a 90-day reprieve, and we're not sure where this is going. And that's a real world thing for people in those businesses. But ultimately, I go back and I'd say we've made it through a lot worse times. Depending on how old you are, you had this president and that president and the next president, and we all seem to do well. And so I think focus. I think too many people are just turn off social media, turn off the TV, just focus on what you can control because the things that continue to control that work will continue to work for you. And I think we spend so much time distracted and use so much energy with stuff that we have no control over. But what we've got to do is in the next 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or whatever time you'll allow me to share with your guests, I want to share with you some practical ideas of some things that I think that we can do to all create more abundance going forward and more wealth. And so the idea is, I've never, as you know, Amber, I've never believed, I've never believed in competition. I've always believed in differentiation and differentiating us from everything we're doing. So when I find people in business, and probably a lot of people on this Zoom, is I think that I would almost say by a show of hands, how many people are out there networking? How many people like to network? And for the most part, I'd say, not everybody, but most hands would go up that people are doing networking. And I've always thought to myself, well, if everybody's doing networking, why would I want to do networking? I don't want to do networking. If everyone's doing networking, why do I want to take the lane that everybody's in going forward? And what I mean by networking is they show up to events. They show up to events like this. They show up to events, and Zooms and places and other things that they're doing, and marketing strategies and other things, so that they can get some business. They can acquire more customers or patients or clients, or be able to sell more goods and services, or consulting services or whatever. And so what we've always done is we've never been a networking firm. We've been a net weaving firm. We are net weavers. And what net weaving is, the difference between net weaving and networking is, net weavers is we come leading with our giving arm. Net weaving means we are truly trying to understand what the other person needs, or how we can add value, or what we can help them, which in most cases disarms them and is the beginning of a relationship that is not transactional, but then you develop transformational relationships. And as you know, all we've done is we have spent a businesses that I've decided that I wanted to be a hero to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking people. And I would ask everybody who's watching this to decide who they want to be a hero to. And then what I suggest they do is they start to net weave with people that want to be a hero to the same group, so that when you talk to that customer, patient, or client, immediately that person sees that entrepreneurial synergy, and they believe that the only place they can get that service is by working with you in that group, you and your group. And so I would suggest that ultimately that it's a subtle shift, but the shift is so transformational and so powerful that if you start to do that over a period of time, um, you will develop relationships at a level you did not think was possible?
I can personally vouch for that. So some of the people that are viewing right now, Mark, they're new to me. And, I tell people when they are new to me that don't let my backdrop and my smile fool you, because, a lot of times people look at me and they think, oh, she's so confident. She's so smiley. Sure, she can be successful. But really, my story begins back when, for the first 17 years of my life, I was incredibly shy, incredibly insecure. I did not have the mindset that I had today. I mean, I really had to develop into a person that I could be proud of. And then along the way, learning this crazy thing called business. And so I can tell you for a fact that everything that Mark just shared, from focusing on what you can control, how to have an abundant mindset and create more wealth, to being contrarian. So if everybody else is networking, you're net weaving, giving, being more transformational than transactional. These are all things that you can learn no matter where your starting point is. And over time, that generosity that you are pumping into your network, into everybody that you're meeting, that does come back to you. I mean, look at the lineup on the Elevate series. I mean, sure, I'm 19 years into this business, but I didn't start with any sort of handouts. And in a moment like this, I encourage you to take a page from Mark's book, literally The Ultimate Investment, where, Mark, you're talking about being emotionally fit and having emotional fitness. I'd love if you could go a little deeper into what you mean by that, because I think that's such a powerful part of your leadership and what makes you so successful.
Well, obviously, I think part of it is you have to identify what your core values are, and you not only have to have core values, you have to hire for those core values, and you've got to have people around you that have your core values. And I think one of the things is emotional fitness, is that the person that can obviously remain both empathetic to somebody, but also can keep their wits about them, and can be able to really listen, cannot be gaslighted, can have the ability to look at every problem, because in every business, everything doesn't just go smoothly. In life, there's bumps, and so how do you have an outlook so that every problem is an opportunity? How do you sit with emotional fitness and have every problem as an opportunity? Even one of the great tricks I say to people is that regardless of the relationship you're in, and this is not an arrogant thing, it's a humble thing, or it's certainly not an arrogant thing, is regardless of the situation you're in, whether it's business or personal, you always want to be the buyer, not the seller. One of the things you do so well, Amber, is you want to give people, I've never seen you sell anything. I've always seen you giving them the opportunity to have the NGNG experience, to have the Amber Vilhauer experience. That I think that's it's come from that. It's never been a sale, and I think that is very, very powerful. And it didn't come in an arrogant way, like they should be lucky to have NGNG and me. It wasn't that. It was that you were putting yourself out there and saying, I'm here, I can help you, I can make a difference in your life and the lives of all the people you touch. And here's what we're doing. I'm welcoming you into my community. And if it's not the right thing for you, that's great. If I see you at the supermarket, I'll give you a hug and ask how your kid is. Or, if I see you at Starbucks, I'll stop and have a cup of coffee with you. But I think that's what I think in that place is how you look at life, because ultimately, you know you know what the secret is after 19 years for you. It's a lot more than that for me. Is that when you pour into people, not for months or years, but for decades, you have an army of people that want to come back and help you. And I've seen even the last 5 or 6 years that you had a very nice network back then, but the network you've created by pouring into people over the last 5 or 6 years that I've known you, much less the last 19, has turned that company into the powerhouse that it is right now, going forward.
Thank you for that reflection, Mark. I appreciate that. Because let's be honest, as entrepreneurs, we don't always celebrate our wins, right? We're always like focused on the next thing, and there's this urgency tied to that usually. So thank you for that reflection. That means a lot. Mark, you Your phone must be ringing off the hook right now. I'm curious, with all of the different types of businesses that you have a bird's eye view into and all of the conversations that you've been having, what are some of the common threads? What are the patterns? What is interesting that maybe we wouldn't find on the CBS headline, but what are you aware of as to what's happening right now, just out of curiosity?
Um, I think that ultimately it comes back to the following. Now, are we known as the firm that helps people create multi-generational wealth and a life by design? I think that's what I think we're known for, and I'd like to be known for. And I obviously when I was younger, I used to think creating multi-generational was enough. But if one of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life. I always get to watch it around the holiday time, and Mr. Potter has multi generational wealth, but nobody wants to be Mr. Potter. If your spouse hates you, if your kids hate you, if you're sick, if you're unhappy, who cares how much money you have? So it's not only to create multi generational wealth, but it's a life by design, a life that's so great that you go from one thing you love to something you love more to something you love more than that, so that you create a life that you never have to retire from, much less take a vacation from, because you're always in creation and fascination mode. And so the thing that I go back to is that when I talk to people that, and if you have a business and you're watching this, think your business. If you don't have a business, it's applicable to your life. But I think that everybody has two lives or two businesses. And the first business, for people that are newer to the business, newer business, we call that a cash flow business. When you first start your business, um, you just have to make enough money to cover the bills. And then as you progress a little bit, then you have to make enough money not only cover your bills, but you have to cover your lifestyle. I've got an apartment to rent, I've got a condo I bought, I've got a car that I've leased, I've got all the things, and you get to a cash flow business. And so I think the first thing is that there are people probably on this call that are still in the process of somewhere beginning, midstream, late stream in the cash flow business, and you want to really help them get the cash flow business. But everybody also has a second business or a second life. And that business is, this is the business that I wish I had. This is the life I wish I had business. And so the idea is that's the fun part where you get to take care of the cash flow business and work on the life you want to have. And if you want to see what your future looks like, it's two things. It's the guesses and bets you make. One of the things that I did, I can tell you, a number of guesses. I make guesses and bets every day. And in my world, there's two things: there's expenses and there's investments. If you're an expense, you're always on the chopping block. And if you're an investment, I have almost an unlimited appetite for investment, as long as I can get at least a 4 or 5 to 1 return on my money. One of the things I did 3 or 4 years ago, and I think we'll probably do it again, is I made a guess because I had written 2 books before I met you. But when I wrote that third book, which was wildly successful and helped us create millions of dollars of revenue, um, is is I made a guess that by making a much heavier investment into the third book and into the marketing into that piece, that I made that guess and I made the bet with my time and my money that that would turn out to something that could get at least a 4 or 5 to 1 return on my money. And by the way, I think it probably got at least a 10x or more on my money. And I
Yay.
and I think I do that in every area, every place that I take that I take those guesses and bets. And I think that and it's in people, because remember, you're not just growing a bit. You never grow a business. You're growing people. And in your life, I think it's really sitting down and going back to emotional fitness, trying to figure out how can you get as much information as you need so that you can make informed decisions and make the right guesses and then make the appropriate bets to create a bigger, better future for yourself and everybody else in your family and in your life. And so that's where I think people need to spend their time. Again, I'm not you know poo-pooing that there are some real world events that affect you in the economy, or there's some real world events. But remember, it's always mindset. Is that every time there is a problem, there is always an opportunity that comes from it. As an example, one of the things that we see industries, or the economy goes down, or we see an industry get in trouble sometimes, temporarily. One of the things that we always look is, one of the first books I wrote, or first things I lecture about, is mergers and acquisitions. When people are making plenty of money, everybody's fine. Even mediocre companies are making money. But when times get tough, that's the great opportunity to go buy that company for pennies on the dollar, get their intellectual property, get their good people, buy things at pennies on the dollar to create, a massive company for yourself. There's always a yin and a yang. There's always a push and a pull. And I think part of that thing is, I played competitive chess when I was young, and I played. I'm a master's bridge player, so I always think 8 moves or 13 tricks ahead. And so the idea is you always want to think about that. You want to think about not just your response. You want to truly listen to hear the person, but you also then not want to also anticipate, sometimes at the same time anticipate not only the response but think 8 moves ahead of where you need to go, and where the opportunity really is. And I think for so many people that they don't see it, and so part of it is not everybody is a visionary, but everybody needs to be able to create a network and resources around them to give them information, and so that they can make the proper guesses and bets.
Speaking of, I think about the last 20 years and the different economic downturns and the instability that we've had quite a lot, right? That we've had a lot of strength training to prepare for this moment. The thing that makes this moment different is really how quickly AI is advancing. Of course, there was the Goldman Sachs report saying that 300 million jobs will be replaced by AI just in less than 5 years. Dell reports that 85% of the jobs that will be in the marketplace within less than 5 years haven't even been invented yet, which is really interesting. Of course, these are predictions, but Mark, in your world, what what are you guys hearing and talking about related to AI? Are you adopting AI? What are your predictions about it, especially as you're talking about networking and really being focused on growing people? Especially, I'm just curious your thoughts on that umbrella topic in general.
Well, I think every company is embracing it at some level, and I'm not talking about just Chat GPT. Obviously, we're now hiring people in India and the Philippines to work. We're using AI to do a lot of clerical and sort of mundane functions that, quite frankly, should have been replaced years ago. But remember, what if you go back through hundreds of years, there were jobs that people did, you know, 500, 300, 400 years ago that got replaced by the wheel, that got replaced by the printing press, that got replaced by the, you know,
Exactly.
by tools and machines and trucks, and every innovation you've had over the last 500 years. And I think that ultimately the jobs that there will be that there are jobs that exist that will not exist in the future, but there will be opportunities for other jobs that might be different, might be more lucrative, might be more challenging, might be more interesting. And I think there'll always be a possibility. And so one of the things is if I've always had a pretty good memory, almost a photographic memory, certainly for numbers and things like that. And so 40 years ago that was a very helpful thing. Now everybody has Siri. Everybody has, you know, can Google anything they want to do. It having that good memory doesn't matter. And by the way, the human memory is not perfect where those are. So the idea is knowledge is something that is not important. You can go figure out anything, go to YouTube and figure out how to do almost anything. I think where people need to focus on is wisdom, because artificial intelligence will not replace wisdom going forward. And um, that it's almost like going in a different lane, going through that thing. So what's the anticipation of things, of not only what AI can do for your business, but what are the needs going to be in terms of jobs there? You might not be able to drive a car or a truck in 10 years, or a lot of those clerical functions might get done. In fact, I've heard Elon Musk say that one of the challenges to the federal unions is that they believe right now 80% of federal jobs could be replaced by AI. And and I think so. It's a matter of retooling and retraining, and it's there's going to be great seismic shifts. in these populations. And like every seismic shift, there's going to be some winners and some losers in everything we do. There's always going to be winners and there's always going to be losers. And I think ultimately, who are you surrounding yourself? What are you doing to make yourself win? And so here's the thing: when I listen hard to people, Amber, is I have a lot of people, not specific, say to AI, but when I sit and I listen to somebody, almost everybody, somebody that maybe works with me or works for me or is just a friend or somebody I'm a sounding board for, I can almost get everybody to tell me what they want. I want to make $1 million a year. I want to make $1 million a week. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do that. People like I was so free to share that with you. But I also listen and I hear so few of them, in fact, very few of them, will tell me exactly what they're willing to do to go get that.
No kidding.
And so the thing I always say to my guys is I always say to them, what are you willing to do that you're not doing now to have what you don't have? Everybody wants the trophy, everybody wants the brass ring, everybody wants the reward, everybody wants the money, everybody wants the accolade. Are you willing to do the work necessary? Are you focused? Are you disciplined? Are you willing to fall in love with the mundane? Are you willing to do what other people are not willing to do? And so the idea is that I think that part of that is where's the grittiness? One of my problems with social media, besides making everybody psychotic, is that people literally think that they're going to go on Instagram or on Facebook or on TikTok or whatever, or and they see something in the world that they don't like, whatever that could be, whatever their cause is, and they'll write a post on social media and think, "Wow, I've solved the problem." you know, I think it's I think cancer is bad. I can, and what do? They go right back on their couch with their blanket and a box of cheese doodles, and they turn on Netflix and watch whatever series they're watching, or Apple TV. Meaning they're not doing anything. I think we're kidding ourselves that we're willing to do the stuff that's necessary. And I think that ultimately that people will then sit back and they'll wring their hands and they'll go, "Oh my God, isn't life horrible? Isn't it so tough? Isn't it unfair? Isn't it there? How do these people have it?" Well, they're willing to go do the work. They're willing to go put the time in and go do the things they need. And by the way, not everybody wants the same thing. I think part of it is really getting to understand who you are and not putting together the plan that somebody like me puts together for you, or what your mom and dad want you to do, or what your spouse wants you to do, or what your grandmother wants you to do. Sit down and put together the plan that's the right plan for you. Put together something you're really passionate about. Put together something that you're good at. Put something together, a product or service that the world needs, and then make sure you can get paid to do it. Because
Right.
I think that abundance is the most important thing. That if you don't have abundance, I think people miss the goal that no poor person ever gave me a job. And as you know, Amber, my personal pet peeve is I hate people that have just enough, because they have just enough for themselves and no one else. So I find them to be very, very selfish people. So one of the things I love about the community that you have, the community you've built, is that it's built on abundance. And so the idea is, imagine the difference you can make in the lives of the people you touch when you have the resources and abundance to do it. Now, that's not necessarily meaning you will do it, but you have the ability to do it. And so that's why I'm always happy to come and speak to the folks that work with you.
I know you're so generous too. Thank you. I think you really hit the nail on the head, several things that you said, but one I want to really zoom in on is, are you willing to do what it takes to go for what you really want? And everybody wants something different. You were talking about focus and discipline. I couldn't agree more. I mean, the thing that I think is a bigger threat, even though I don't love that word, is this. And on Thursday, we're talking with Dr. Rayan Williamson, as you know.
Ryan's a good man.
Yes, board certified neurologist. And I'm dying to get into that conversation because I have observed that so many people's cognitive abilities and resilience is at an all-time low. Part of what I attribute that to, even though there's so many different factors, is when 2020 hit and COVID was announced, the entire world went through such a shock all at the same time. And then over time, it was just sort of like, well, I guess this is the new normal. And we went back to work, and the world was different at that point. But there was never really any conversation about how to overcome that shock and that trauma. There was like a lot of loss and changes and moves and, different jobs and divorces and all sorts of chaos sort of happened at that time. But I don't think people really took care of themselves through all of that. And then with the acceleration of AI and more elections and more shock factors everywhere, I believe that people then went into avoidance and escapism. So to your point, cheese doodles and Netflix is probably the 101 version of it. And I've just noticed as people have been complaining about brain fog, memory loss, decision fatigue, burnout. I mean, you can't lead a company through a moment like this. You can't learn, adopt, and integrate AI and figure out and be part of the abundant solution if your brain isn't not working properly. And so I'm really excited about that conversation on Thursday of what can we do to almost have a brain intervention to repair and recover. But Mark, I want to pull on that thread a little bit with you because of the people that I know. You're one of the busiest. And it's not just busy like productive procrastination or like busy for the sake of being busy. You have a full life. You have 5 kids. You've got your relationship, you're traveling, you're building your company, you're making waves in industries. You're so generous, always willing to pick up the phone for absolutely anybody at any time. I want to know, what are you doing to take care of yourself physically, mentally? We did talk about emotional fitness there for a minute, but how on earth are you sustaining at the level that you produce every single day? Like, what are your secrets really?
I think for people, everybody knows themselves and they know their body, and I think that it's okay to take care of yourself. And I think there are some people that I'll call just proper care, which I think Ryan will talk a lot about, which is, you want to get enough sleep and you want to get enough hydration, you want to get enough. If you need to see a therapist, see a therapist. If you've got some health or other issues, or some disease or something, you need to take care of yourself. That's different. Um, but I also think that 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 all of those things, and you want to, as you get older, you have to take care of yourself better. To me, alcohol doesn't work as well for me, as it did when I was 20 years old. And not that I won't have a drink or two occasionally, but it's not like, you can't go to work hungover, or you can't go to work with 3 hours of sleep, or you're not consistently exercise or take care of your body, or so you do the things to keep it flexible, limber, and feel good, and all those other things are there, and have the right rate diversion. But I also think that we've fallen into a victimhood culture, and I think that you have to make a choice. Either you're empowered or you're a victim. Either you're empowered or you're a victim. And I think so many people go to blaming of others for their problems, or envy, which is a disease of coveting what other people's have, when they should just go get it themselves. I mean, how many people have you spoken to over the years that had an amazing idea and could really scale a business around it, and all they needed to do was put out a great book, and they talked and talked and talked about it, and they didn't do it, or they said,
That's the
I'm going,
worst. It
I'm,
breaks my heart.
or I'm going to, how many people say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other thing. And so part of it is, maybe there's an issue that you've got a mental, physical, another issue, a rest issue. Maybe there's, I can't do that because, I've got, I've got some limitations in my family of things that prevent me from doing things. But I think so many of other folks is that it's time that we don't get out of this life alive. Everybody's going to die at some point. Hopefully, it's a long time from now, but they're all going to go. And so, why are we not living our fullest? One of the things we do is retirement planning. It's not everything we do. It's a small part of what we do. But I always talk about in retirement that when you talk to people that are 65 or 70 and start to retire, and you talk about them that they've worked very, very hard and they've been very, very successful, and they get to that point, and you go, well, in retirement, there's 3 levels of retirement. There's full go, there's slow go, and there's no go. And so, you're 65 or 70, 75, 80, you're in good shape. You can run up the Spanish Steps in Rome. You might not be able to do that at 105 if you're even here. So you might be in slow go, or you might be in no go at that point where the life shifts. So you want to do it now. I know you because I know, you're in your, early 40s. You're not supposed to give a woman's age away. But I would say to you is that, one of the things we talk about all the time is you want to get a piece of paper out and a T at the top. And you want on the left side, you want to write everything you'd be doing in retirement that you're not doing now. And on the right side, you want to write all the things you hate about your business or your job. And if you work for somebody, you may not have as much flexibility as somebody who runs a company like you do. But I think, Wyatt, in your early 40s, wouldn't you start to add one or two things on the left side of things you'd be doing? Why wouldn't you try to get rid of one or two or three things on the right side of things you don't like doing? With the theory being, why would you wait, Amber, till 65 or 70 to retire? Because if you're doing all the things you want to do and not doing the things you don't want to do, why don't you retire at 40? Just makes much more sense to me to be able to go do that. And
100%.
and I think also that people sort of get in a circular flow, that they get so insular in terms of not seeing what's possible. Like everybody has their super their superpower, their super trick. But for me, what I try to focus on is I have to see people where they are. Like I can't see them through rose-colored glasses. I'm very, very proud of all five of my kids you mentioned, but they're not perfect, and I'm not perfect either. But I'm so proud of them, and they're doing so many wonderful things. But yeah, I have to see them where they are. But the trick is to see people at their highest potential. You want to see people at their highest potential, and I think one of the things that is so underutilized in this economy, where people are just on their phones all day, and they're hiding under the blanket, and they're not socializing, they're putting out crazy rants on social media, is the power and ability you have to make somebody's day.
No
That that
kidding.
that that the most important thing I think that we tend to forget is that how amazing and how powerful is it to just have one person in this world who believes in you. And by the way, if you have two, wow, you are really lucky. And if you have three or more, oh my God, you could be the richest person on the planet by just having people that believe in you and believe in your ability and who you are and what makes a difference. And it's great that people who really know you and you care about believe in you. But sometimes a stranger can make a difference in your life just as much by a kind word or by acknowledging something that's there. I think that ultimately it just changes the outlook of what's possible. And I think the thing too is there are so many people just so stuck and stuck that they don't think it's possible for them when it's all right at their fingertips if they're just willing to take the first step.
Thank you so much. And I want to share too, we're almost out of time here, but what I want to do is share that Mark was very generous and wanted to give all of you a gift. So if you go to the Elevate series website, you'll see that he is giving you an autographed copy of his best-selling book, The Ultimate Investment. Really a phenomenal book. And so we'll be able to ship that directly to you. And you'll also be able to come and see the rest of our speaker lineup. We actually have Daryl Stenson coming in tomorrow, and then Dr. Ryan Williamson, as I mentioned, on Thursday. But Mark, I just took so many pages of notes here, as always. So I want to thank you so much for your time and your wisdom to highlight that word. Anything else that you want to share before we conclude?
I think that I think that you just want to um, you just I think every day I just think that what I love so much about your community is that I've never seen a community that's been cultivated um, where where people want to help as many people as they can. Meaning if you're a taker, you're probably not going to be in this group for very, very long. That what I love about the group you've assembled is that people are such giving people. They want to help as many people as they can. Obviously, it's a group that also helps create a lot of abundance for folks. And the other thing too is the other thing is I like to have a lot of fun doing what I'm doing,
Me
as
too.
you know, and I know you do as well. And I'm sure that if I got to see some of the folks that were here today, that they probably have very similar kind of aspirations and goals. And I just appreciate the time that I've spent, and with you, and I just appreciate you and appreciate all the people that are here. And you just continue to let me know what I can do to help you.
Thank you so
Very
much,
good.
Mark.
Well,
Everyone, go grab a copy of Mark's book. It's seriously phenomenal. We will see you tomorrow in the Elevate series.
by the way, my mother thinks it's amazing. So, that's all you guys need to know. Thanks so much. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Bye bye.